Welcome everyone for this morning with the somber events happening around the world. I send out special thoughts to Haiti, where people are suffering very much from the devastating earthquake, a country that is already economically devastated. Additionally, the situation in Afghanistan is educational, perhaps. It's unfortunate that so much blame seems to be heaped upon President Biden, who was just doing what everyone else in the presidency has done, only finally having the U.S. troops withdraw. So I want to share a brief song to get us started. And this one is very brief. You can't sell guns without a war, and that's what wars are started for, to make the rich richer and the poor more poor. You can't sell arms without a war. And that goes around and around and around. And that was by Ethel Davis of Sacramento, California. I would like to take just a moment to introduce Janet Slaughter. Janet is the alternate on the international board, the alternate to the America's representative for Women's International League for Peace and Freedom International. Janet will give us a brief message about the situation in Afghanistan, especially from the perspective of International WILPF. And Janet, please unmute yourself and you're on.
Thank you, Darian. I'm going to talk about two things. One is the situation of our WILPF representative in Afghanistan. And then two is what can we do to help Afghan people? There will be a list of web links available in the chat after I finish. First, WILPF has a national section in Afghanistan, and our regional representative for South Asia comes from Afghanistan. Her name is Jamila Afghani. Now, Jamila has been living in exile in Turkey for about the last year and a half, but at some point had returned to Afghanistan, I don't know when, and found herself caught by the quick progress of the Taliban forces and has fled to the airport. The most recent update, which is 8 hours ago, is that she is trying to get on a plane to be evacuated. She has at least one completed application to enter another country, to Ireland. And you may have seen some of the video that is circulating about people fleeing to the airport and swarming a warplane. It's really frightening. Madeleine Rees, our Secretary General, given her history of working at the UN and working for us with the UN, has many contacts there, also in other agencies and with governments who are not as restrictive as is the US in admitting refugees. Madeleine reported this morning to Jamila and the IB, the International Board, that she's been working to help Jamila and got her on as many lists as it was possible to do to increase her chances of evacuation. So that's 8 hours old news. I don't know anything more. Okay, what can WILPF do in the current shifting Afghan reality? Well, Madeleine Rees urged us to lobby our delegations to the UN so that the Security Council should take on the task of protecting the most vulnerable people left behind, especially women and girl children. And that is something that is within the purview of the UN Security Council. However, the UN Security Council already has enacted a sanctions regime against the Taliban. And so it's very unclear how effective that effort can be. Having listened to today's Code Pink webinar on Afghanistan, and I know Darian was there too, and probably some of you, I heard several suggestions for our actions that do present better possibilities of being effective. These were provided mainly by Phyllis Bennis, author of 11 books on the Middle East, an expert on Palestine, and fellow at the Institute for Policy Studies. Phyllis Bennis provides 5 policy recommendations that we should concentrate on. And these are things that we can, as WILPF, lobby to do. 1, end the US bombing and drone raids and CIA death squad activities permanently. 2, support international efforts to create an international corridor that goes through several countries and guarantees safe passage for Afghan and international humanitarian workers, and of course for humanitarian items. 3, fund a massive COVID assistance program. There were already lots of refugees, estimates of 150,000, crowded in the streets of Afghanistan as the Taliban was taking over more and more of the country. And they are increasingly crowded together. And this means that COVID is going to bloom in a few days. 4, expand qualification categories for Afghan refugees and asylum seekers to come to the US and reduce the required paperwork. And 5, given the US legacy in Afghanistan, we should officially acknowledge our responsibility for the impact of the US war there, its impact on Afghan people. Ms. Bennis suggested this afternoon, she said for 1/10 of the cost of the war in Afghanistan in 2020, we could resettle 1.2 million refugees. Code Pink is circulating a petition which lists 4 of these 5 provisions in it. You can find this at codepink.org/Afghanistan 2021. Ms. Bennis also has an article in The Nation dated today, which is available online. I want to talk about donations. Now, WILPF has been participating in a GoFundMe campaign, which you can find on the My WILPF website when you type in Afghanistan. The new WILPF international website is very hard to navigate. I would say go to My WILPF, get a My WILPF account if you don't already have one, and then you have to type in Afghanistan to get anywhere close to this donation site. I think there's some problems with the WILPF donation site because when it was established at the end of July, the goal was to raise money to pay rent for hundreds of women who were fleeing to Kabul. Well, now you got to leave Kabul. And it's not clear what this GoFundMe site is going to transition to. Meanwhile, Code Pink has a fund drive specifically to support Afghan women trying to flee their countries. That's at codepink.org/women refugees. So that's really, there were a lot of things that came out in that webinar, but I'll stop there. I'll post these things on the chat, these links, these sites. And if anybody's got questions or we have time for questions, I'll take questions too.
I don't believe we really have time for questions right now, but we can make that time available at the end of the presentation if you're able to stay with us, Janet. And not everyone who's going to be on this call is here right now, most likely. So if you can repeat an abbreviated of that version of that at the end, that would be excellent.
Okay.
So for now, without further ado, I hope that we can hear from the presenters from Cape Cod about fashioning change.
Hey, hi, I'm Candace Perry with the Cape Cod Branch. I hope you can hear me okay. It's a little daunting to be doing this program in the light of what's happening in Afghanistan and in Haiti. But one of the things this fashioning change show does is it takes on the big social issues It just is a way that's a little more fun than some of the other things we do are. And so we hope you'll still find it useful, and actually it's serious in many ways. It's just a lighter way to sometimes do some work. The Cape Cod Branch decided to do this for our presentation for Congress because it was something we did that was good for the branch. We had a good time doing it, and we also took care of a lot of issues by doing this. So our committee included Elenita Muniz, Chris Morin, Pat O'Brien, Donna Peel, and myself. So we're really glad that you're joining us for Fashioning Change. It's our workshop on how to have fun while making change. We're going to put on our glasses so we can read what we're saying here. Our work can sometimes seem very difficult and impossible. It's hard to keep going over and over again, addressing the same issues, causes, and abuses. So it's good to find ways to have fun while doing the important political work. From our annual planning retreat on the shore to our quadrennial inaugural balls here at Cape Cod, we've tried to make the hard work enjoyable and rewarding. This presentation that we're going to give to you tonight is a fashion show that members of the Cape Cod Branch created in 2012. The idea came from Gwen Kirk of the San Francisco branch, and you'll see that some of the fashion designs also came from San Francisco. In true WILPF fashion, we want to share what was shared with us. You'll notice that the presentation's original script, although sometimes dated, reflects the social justice issues that we still advocate for today. We used this fashion show as the introduction to a full-day conference at the local college, exploring the roots of violence and seeds of change. After the fashion show, we held workshops to address major issues. Using this particular medium to talk about social issues is one way to draw the public into discussion and the need for change. During the presentation, which is going to be presented in just a minute, you may want to turn up the volume on your device, and sometimes the volume may change, so you may want to turn it down. Okay, so just sort of pay attention to that. At the very opening, there'll be a couple of seconds of a blue screen. Don't worry, we'll be starting right after that. And when the presentation concludes, which the presentation will take about 40 minutes, then we'll have time for your questions and answers. So enjoy Fashioning Change.
Elenita, did you turn on the volume?
Hang in there, we're working on it.
Did you click the thing that said share my computer sound before you selected the video clip? And also optimize for video clip next to that.
You'll need to go out of the share screen and then come back in again.
We're all experienced at being motherly, so we'll tell you what to do.
Right, and we've all done it wrong so many times that we are experts in every mistake that can be made.
And you're muted.
Okay, that I can handle, but I don't have anything that tells me to share my sound.
When we practiced, didn't you go to that right corner
When you click on share screen,
Yeah,
before you select what you're sharing,
yeah.
there's at the bottom of your window, there should be a little box that says something about computer sound.
Share
And
sound.
The
In the
upper
lower
left, on
There
the
it
far
is.
left.
Optimized for video.
both
Yeah,
of
but
them.
to the left of that, it should say
Yep,
share
I did
sound.
that.
That's the
Okay,
central.
now
Yeah,
let's
and
try
yes,
this
after
again.
that.
Try it again. Sorry. All right. Let's see. This morning, we will use the medium. I'm going back to the very beginning.
Just think how educational this is for everyone.
This complex is Welcome to Roots of Violence, Seeds of Change. Today we'll explore what lies at the root of some critical issues facing Cape Cod. More than exploring the roots, however, we want to design seeds that together we can plant to bring an end to the violence that plagues our lovely peninsula. You see among you the 3 pillars of the international program of Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, or WILPF. Human rights, environmental justice, disarmament, and peace. Lofty words, aren't they? But how do they relate to us here on Cape Cod? And how precisely does violence play a role? What stands in the way of our achieving these goals? How are they connected? And where do we begin to look for seeds of change? As the Occupy movement pointed out so clearly, our economy is controlled by 1% of the population. They control the institutions that shape our lives, the government, military, church, and corporations. We could call it a corporate, congressional, academic, media, military complex. This complex is a huge hierarchy with a few people on top and many on the bottom. And it holds power over all aspects of our lives. How our food is grown, what kind of fuels we can use in our cars, whether a woman must carry to term a pregnancy resulting from rape, the production of war toys and violent games in our children's lives, who has a home and who lives on the streets, even who is defined as an American. This morning, we will use the medium of fashion to look at the web of violence and its root causes in our society. We'll look at the obvious forms of violence, militarism and rape, and at the more subtle forms of violence we live with on Cape Cod. Let's begin. Mark goes right to the root of our discussion in this stunning power over outfit. He starts with a corporate gray suit, virgin white shirt, and Harvard red rep tie, tied in a four-in-hand knot, reflecting his sexual self-confidence. He's a picture of corporate savvy and power. He carries cash at the ready to throw into any election that interests him, as the Supreme Court has allowed him to do. Thanks to the Citizens United decision allowing corporations to contribute money to our elections, Mark and his corporate pals can make Congress and the military march to the beat of corporate profits and shareholder dividends. He can, in the immortal words of Marine Corps General Smedley Butler, make Central America safe for United Fruit Company, or try to ensure our access to oil from the Caspian Sea by securing a pipeline through Afghanistan. Mark and his corporate buddies can also dictate laws and policies that put corporations above people. See how Congress dances for hydraulic fracturing for natural gas trapped underground in shale, with all its attendant environmental destruction. Or the campaign to grow corn for ethanol rather than food. Or patenting our personal genetic codes. Mark and his pals have laid claim to private corporate ownership of our commons, the air, the water, the earth. And through media control, they have convinced us that this is all for our own good. Of course, power over can be found in many other places than in corporate abuse. Power relationships are all around us. Teacher and student, priest and parishioner, doctor and patient, police officer and immigrant driver, parent and child, sometimes husband and wife. In the abuse of such relationships, we find the root of violence in our lives. Thank you, Mark. Susan is wearing a cotton two-piece outfit. The chic camouflage jacket represents the 60% of the federal budget devoted to war. Note the money green trim, indicative of the incredible waste in many military expenses, as well as the mammoth profits to the defense industry. Susan's box-pleated skirt shows the other half of the budget, allocated to civilian needs. Patterned after a pie chart, the colors on her skirt show blue stripes for health, yellow for transportation, pink and green plaid for international affairs, and red for energy. But wait, tucked between the pleats of the civilian budget is more military money. The Veterans Administration is in the health budget. Homeland Security creeps into transportation. NASA and nuclear weapons research is buried in energy, and international affairs money trains foreign troops. But that's not the full story. Underneath the military budget is the corporate U.S. flag. At least 1/3 of military spending lines the pockets of the top 10 Pentagon contractors like Lockheed Martin and Boeing. This corporate need for profits motivates Congress to approve massive spending for projects the Defense Department doesn't even want. And there's more. Susan has something in her top hat. It's billions of dollars borrowed to fund the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Since we don't have the money to finance these wars, China, Japan, Saudi Arabia, and Britain are bankrolling our debt. Thank you, Susan. So now, with the basics of power over and U.S. budget priorities explained, let's turn to our first pillar of WILF's program, human rights. Here is Chuck, resplendent in a jazzy orange jumpsuit and gray striped sweater. Does this look familiar? It might remind you of the prisoners we see picking up trash along the highways of Cape Cod. But Chuck's prison is internal, for now. He's working as a waiter in a local restaurant, and maybe he has a green card, and maybe not. Massachusetts is not part of the Secure Communities program, but if Chuck is undocumented and gets caught, this prison orange will become his daily wear. Did you know that some 100 languages are spoken on Cape Cod? And 36 on Nantucket? We have a significant immigrant population, including 10,000 from Brazil and 2,000 from other Latin American countries. We also welcome immigrants from South Asia, Europe, and Africa. Like Chuck, Nancy is also undocumented and at great risk, living in crowded housing, often at high rents, driving without a license, being hired illegally, and being abused with impunity. If Chuck or Nancy is detained in Massachusetts, they'll be lucky. Sort of. Their striped sweaters echo the prison-striped outfit undocumented prisoners are condemned to wear in the tent cities of Arizona, where Sheriff Joe Arpaio accents the stripes with socks and underwear dyed bright pink. But to be honest, Chuck and Nancy are not worried about that. They're just trying to earn a living, get paid for their work, feed their families, get an education for their kids, and not be noticed. Like many immigrants on Cape Cod, they are hiding in plain sight, contributing to the Cape's economy, but always at risk of discrimination or abuse or arrest. Thank you, Chuck and Nancy. Look, it's Lindsay as Mother Ginger, come from the land of the Sugar Plum Fairy to help us look at hunger on Cape Cod. Yes, hunger. Mother Ginger may look healthy and well-fed, but looks can be deceiving, sort of like the empty calories that are so enticing and cheap everywhere around us. Mother Ginger's embroidered white peasant blouse is cinched by a bustier woven from junk food and fast food wrappers. Quick, cheerful, and inexpensive, foods like Big Macs and Doritos do more to build healthy corporate profits than healthy bodies. In our local grocery stores, the healthy real foods are located on the far edges of the store, while the center is crowded with junk food, junk drinks, seasonal treats like Halloween candy, and high sodium, high calorie prepared foods. Many of these prepared foods are loaded with high fructose corn syrup. The TV commercials don't tell us that high fructose corn syrup is made from food wastes and added to everything. It's easy to see where the profit centers are, and they're not in the vegetable department. But something else may be there. Grapes from overseas, for instance. How safe are they? We ban DDT in the United States, but we sell it to other food-producing countries, for a profit, of course. Mother Ginger's skirt is full and supported by, could that be? Yup, it's the Burger King's crowns, adding bulk to her silhouette, while the golden arches accent the curves of her hips. But here's the dirty secret her full skirt hides. Here on Cape Cod, amid lobster, blueberries, clam rolls, and fresh seafood, hunger and food insecurity are real issues. According to Project Bread, in 2010, Cape Cod's 30 food pantries provided food to some 18,000 households, which included 64,600 individuals, 34% of the Cape population. According to the same report, programs like the NOAA Shelter for the Homeless, Meals on Wheels for Seniors, and Calvary Baptist Free Community Meals served over 180,000 meals in 2010. And under the full folds of Mother Ginger's skirt, what do we find? Cape Cod's school children, of whom 27% in all grades from kindergarten to senior year, over 1/4 of our students, the ones in red, are eligible for free or reduced price lunches. And here's a question. What are those 6,963 children doing during the summer for a good hot meal?
Hey, what's
Thank
with
you,
you?
Lindsay.
She's delusional. I think she is partly delusional. She's talented.
Now here's
She's a good
Pamela,
organizer.
très
She's had a lot of
distinguée in her red
experience.
and black
But her
suit.
way isn't the
From
only
the
way.
waist
She
up,
doesn't.
she's a
Someone
corporate
needs to
banker,
mute themselves.
carrying
We
a
can hear
sheaf
them.
of foreclosure notices in a red jacket trimmed with newspaper. Newspaper is, of course, the covering of last resort for many homeless people sleeping on the sidewalks of our towns. Pamela's skirt is accented
Professed
with
introvert,
movable
introvert.
panels of cardboard,
Meaning
so
introvert with
versatile
big
as housing
capital
for the
I.
homeless
George calls
living
herself
in
an
the woods
introvert?
or marshes
Yes.
along our coast. Like the turtle, Pamela carries her home with her. But this is not an evolutionary adaptation. Pamela has no other home. Why? She's a banker, after all, even handing out foreclosure notices. But the trim and accents on Pamela's suit serve to remind us that many of us are just one paycheck away from ruin, or one serious illness, or one too many bouts with alcohol or substance abuse, or one last violent incident in our home that drives us out seeking safety. No one knows how many homeless people are living on Cape Cod and the islands. The NOAA shelter housed more than 500 people last year, but untold others live on friends' couches, in motel rooms, in tents in the woods, or in their car. One day, quite suddenly, Pamela may find herself homeless, and she wants to be prepared. The Cape's homeless people may have to live in 8 square feet, but others on the Cape choose to live in 8,000 square feet. Witness Pamela's handsome chapeau, inspired by the Klein homestead out on Truro's marshland. McMansions like this help drive up the cost of housing in general, making a home beyond the means of many Cape Cod working families. On Pamela's behalf, we should recognize that local banks, those not branches of national entities, work to help people remain in their homes. But for those whose mortgages have been bundled and sold and resold to investment companies looking for a quick profit, such assistance is hard to come by. How much effort Pamela puts into helping homeowners keep their homes may depend on what bank she's working for. Thank you, Pamela. Our models so far have illustrated a few of Cape Cod's human rights problems. Let's turn now to another of WILF's program pillars, peace and disarmament. Donna is wearing a sexy above-the-knee length olive drab dress. representing the recruiter's subliminal message that war is sexy. The jewels on her chest are like medals for courage and honor, suggesting to a smart young woman that she will be respected and valued. Donna's gold bracelets symbolize the promise of money for college, training for the future, and perhaps a large signing bonus. None of the military recruiters in our Cape Cod high schools mention that the promises are meaningless, becoming gold handcuffs. Once she joins, she's military property. There are no guarantees that she'll get the job she wants or that she won't see combat. The outfit's long black cape shows the dark shadow that may follow Donna even after she leaves the service. This is the trauma experienced by many women vets, maybe from sexual abuse by male colleagues, or from haunting memories and flashbacks of atrocities she witnessed, even having to kill. On Cape Cod, military recruiters are allowed into our schools, promising our treasured youth adventure, training, and a job. Don't let the military take your style. Death is not a fashion statement. Thank you, Donna. Bryony thought this was the happiest day of her life, marrying her high school sweetheart soldier and fulfilling her dreams of a happy life as they set off on their honeymoon. The honeymoon turned out to be short-lived. Her husband was shipped off to Afghanistan. And now Bryony finds she's working on the home front, juggling home and work, keeping her family going while Dad's away. She's there for him, too, when he calls to hear her voice in the middle of the night from some payphone on a base near Kabul. She's worried about money, worried about the kids, scared about what might happen to her husband. No wonder she looks frazzled. Her accessories are her phone and her maxed-out credit cards. This outfit symbolizes the fate facing many military brides, that their soldier husbands may be injured, they may not come home, or that they will be forever changed by war. The Department of Defense probably didn't tell our bride that 4,481 American troops have been killed in Iraq, 2,093 in Afghanistan, and 49,846 wounded in action. And we doubt that any recruiter mentions that more U.S. soldiers have killed themselves than have died in combat in Iraq and Afghanistan. Bryony's fears for her husband are well-founded, unfortunately. Thank you, Bryony. Don't go thinking that everything military is camouflage and olive drab. Barbara is fetching in this black and blue ensemble designed especially for her by a militaristic society that has decided that violence is the solution to every problem at home, on campus, or in military service. In the United States, women experience about 4.8 million intimate, partner-related physical assaults and rapes every year. Right here on Cape Cod, Independence House served 6,514 clients in 2011, women, teens, and children. That included over 2,500 hours of counseling for domestic violence and nearly 2,000 hours for sexual assault counseling. Note how fashionable Barbara remains even when her arm has been broken. Her scarf converts easily to a sling. Whether it's a violent partner, the kickback from her M40 rifle, or just a random punch in the eye, Barbara makes her ensemble work with a stylish black eye patch. To complement her ensemble, Barbara wears this high-fashion chapeau, which conveniently can be removed quickly to protect her if she lives in a country which has refused to ratify the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, or CEDAW. CEDAW was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 1979. It calls for equality of the sexes in political, social, cultural, civil, and other fields, and protects women from gender-directed violence. Those countries where Barbara would be well advised to wear this hat include Sudan, Somalia, Iran, and the United States. Thank you, Barbara. The military-industrial corporate complex couldn't be happier with the fashion statement here. Angela is all worn out from a day's shopping in her faux camo pants paired with a mountain camo sweater. Notice how fashions have evolved with the changing military theaters. Camouflage is now available in the traditional jungle green, stylish desert browns, or Angela's understated mountain grays. She won't be caught dead wearing the wrong outfit. And good news for Angela, she found camo gear for her kids, too. Won't the baby look great in this camo onesie? And little Janie will be thrilled with her very own camo jacket. Our kids don't even have to be drafted. They'll want to go into the military so they can keep being so fashionable, just like Mommy. And look, here's a United States Marine Corps teddy bear to hug for comfort during scary moments. Yes, the Marines will definitely keep us safe and sound. Military fashionistas have certainly kept up with the times. In the past, such regalia was just for the boys, but today's modern family can all be militarized in sartorial splendor. Camouflage is so ever-present we barely notice it when our doctor or, say, school principal shows up at the office decked out for action. Thank you, Angela. Enough with the pervasive militarism of our everyday lives. Let's turn to the third pillar of WILPF's program, environmental justice. Here comes Mary, the goddess of our single-source aquifer, to remind us that water is our most precious resource. Our bodies are 90% water. Our Earth is 75% water. We depend on water for life, but less than 1/2 of 1% of the Earth's water is usable, and this number is shrinking. Water is in danger of becoming a commodity completely controlled by corporations, both as bottled water and through the privatization of water sources and the infrastructure that delivers it. Nestle, Veolia, and Suez Environnement are just a few of the multinational corporations that either provide water services to our homes, bottle our community spring water, or otherwise control the vast amounts of water needed to power our industries. As safe water resources shrink, conflicts break out over control of the water and become an excuse for water wars. Our goddess's lovely but quickly discoloring trains show the effects of treating our water as a dumping ground. Here on the Cape, NSTAR and lawn maintenance companies use pesticides and fertilizers that sink into our groundwater. Our goddess's once pure water is inextricably mixed with plumes of pollution affecting the groundwater all around Otis Air National Guard Base. This is the result of using and improper disposal of ammunition and toxic chemicals. Our own use of pharmaceuticals and household cleaners is also a problem. And what about the Boston Harbor outfall pipe? It contributes 1 billion gallons of effluent a day to the waters north of Cape Cod. And then there's Pilgrim Nuclear Power Plant, but more about that one later. The water goddess implores us to be vigilant about protecting our supply of clean water and making sure it remains a common good. Thank you, Mary. Here comes Diane, our courageous image of the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Plant's spent fuel rod storage in Plymouth. Pilgrim's irradiated fuel pool was originally designed to hold 880 highly radioactive spent fuel rods, completely encased in water to contain the radioactivity. Now, 40 years later, it holds 3,859 spent fuel rods, 4 times the original capacity. These overcrowded storage pools are dangerous. They have been described as pre-deployed weapons awaiting activation by an enemy. But a more likely scenario is losing that cooled water due to a leak in the tank or loss of power, a hurricane strike, internet viruses, or any number of other causes. This would lead to overheating, fire, and the release of high-level radioactivity. We, dear Cape Codders, live directly downwind from the Pilgrim plant. Unthinkable? Not really. The Pilgrim plant is a GE Mark IV boiler. Exactly the same design as that of the Fukushima power plant in Japan, which went so disastrously wrong in their earthquake and tsunami last year. Take another look at those glowing rods and decide if you think Pilgrim is safe to continue this storage method or even to be relicensed at all. While even some members of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission had their doubts, Entergy, the corporate owners of Pilgrim, pulled the necessary strings to get approval for relicensing Pilgrim for another 20 years. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Thank you, Diane. Spent fuel rods are only one problem with Pilgrim Nuclear Power Plant. The containment system, the reactor, in fact the whole plant, have decades of corrosion and stress cracks to show for their 40 years of operation. They are brittle. Security drills by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission have been deemed inadequate by congressional auditors. How will Pilgrim survive in the event it loses power for an extended time? No one knows for sure, so we must plan ahead. Here is Judy in a charming peach raincoat to help us understand our state and county government's carefully thought out response plan. The official plan does not include Cape Cod, of course, as we lie outside the 10-mile radius it covers. We do, however, have handsome blue signs that indicate where we should go in the event of a crisis at Pilgrim. Judy is carrying a map of our official evacuation route. Just as a Cape Codder carries a raincoat in the event of showers, so we should all memorize the evacuation route. Repeat after me. Drive west on Route 6. Yes, drive west. Directly toward the power plant. And we all know how swiftly traffic moves going off Cape at the best of times. So, backups of 30 or 40 or 50 miles are not unlikely. What could we do instead? A quick change, and Judy is sporting the latest in hazardous material suits and respirator to filter the contaminated air. Can it filter out radiation, Judy? No? Do you have an idea of what we should do instead? Another quick change, and voila! Our best escape route, dear friends, is to swim east. Surely the government can come up with a better alternative? Or maybe not. Thank you, Judy. Our models have brought us a vivid picture of the ways in which WILPF's 3 pillars of peace and disarmament, human rights, and environmental justice are being blocked in our society, right here on Cape Cod. Militarism, gender violence, homelessness, hunger, environmental destruction, all are forms of violence, destroying the fabric of community and security these pillars would support. We have seen how greed, fear, and a drive for power and profit serve to keep us separate and in competition for what we are told are scarcities: water, justice, food, a home, work, safety, and peace. Women's International League for Peace and Freedom does not believe that those are or should be scarcities. We believe we can plant seeds to change our present reality, starting right here at home. Let's take a look. Sally is wearing this carefree cotton 3-piece outfit, a complete makeover that transforms the olive drab of the military budget into colorful and useful services. Her pockets hold veterans' benefits, money for retraining recruiters, soldiers, and Pentagon bureaucrats, money to convert bases for community use and clean up toxic waste caused by military training and wars. This outfit has deep pockets, inside pockets, and pockets within pockets. Social Security is zipped up tight and padlocked in Sally's purse for the people. There is plenty of money for college, for education for kids and adults, health care for everyone, money for drug treatment, AIDS research, renewable energy, good public transit, affordable homes, parks and gardens, filling in potholes, cleaning up trash, mending everything that's broken, bringing good food to poor neighborhoods, and so much more. And in her bold garden boots, Sally steps out to plant the seeds that will grow the world we want to see. Let's all join Sally and her WILPF sisters and brothers to harvest a viable future for generations to come. Thank you, Sally. Mary is the personification of community in her seafoam green wrap palazzo pants and sleeveless t-shirt. The shirt's lovely carp design totally repurposes the orange of the prison jumpsuit we saw earlier. Over that, her waist-length rainbow poncho celebrates the diversity of our community and the ways we care for each other, not allowing people to be lost or hidden and therefore vulnerable. Mary carries a basket of healthy food, indicating the plenty that's available if resources are shared equitably. Such abundance must mean that the United States has at last changed its United Nations vote and agreed that food is indeed a human right, not a commodity. This change would bring the U.S. back into the fold of the international community on this issue. Community gardens and the ability to avoid genetically modified seed contribute to the wealth of healthy food for all. Karen, too, personifies human rights for all. And what's that on her head? Could it be? Yes. It's a crown of house keys, a sign that there is an affordable home for everyone, if only we will work at it with a will. Thank you, Mary and Karen. Bethsaida's earth-toned outfit shows that it is possible to live in harmony with the earth. Her ivy trim binds her to the earth while it reaches toward the sky. The blues and flowers of her canopy also bring us closer to earth and sky. Think globally and act locally. We can and do make a difference. Look at what we have already achieved. Thanks to pressure from Cape Cod citizens who spoke up, wrote letters, and took to the power lines, NSTAR has, for now, decided not to spray pesticides on their rights of way. Otis Air Base personnel are cleaning up their act, again because of years of citizen pressure. Cape towns are setting up drop-offs for leftover medicines so people won't have to flush them into our water supplies. Farmers markets provide healthy, locally grown food. Community gardens offer everyone the space to grow your own produce. And you have come to this conference today to learn how to fashion change. But change doesn't happen unless we all remain aware, become active, and stay in tune with the earth. Picketing, writing letters, posting signs, talking to neighbors and friends as well as legislators, doing our research and making our desires known, we can make change. Thank you, Bethsaida and Jane. The roots of violence in our society go very deep and sometimes seem overwhelming. We need to work on a local level right here on Cape Cod, as well as statewide and nationally. The workshops we offer today will pursue the issues we have raised in our fashion show, and together we can make a difference.
Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much to all the folks from the Cape Cod Branch who made this possible. I see lots of waves and thanks, and there were some wonderful things in the chat. We really appreciate it. Thank you. One person put in the chat that she had heard about this but couldn't picture how it was done. And so I'm really happy that this maybe gave some ideas. And so we want to open it up to you all. If you have a question or a thought, and I know we want to leave some time also for Janet to come back and talk to us a little bit about what we can do about some of the immediate difficulties in the world. So we're at 9 o'clock our time right now, 6 o'clock, some of you. But we'll take questions and all for about 10 minutes. Okay. Anybody have something?
There's a question in the chat,
Okay.
Candace, from
All
Jan.
right. Thank you.
I can answer some of that. Who are the seamstresses? The people who built those costumes were listed. I built a bunch of them. Donna Peel built them. Laura Gates worked on a couple of them as well. So we had some designs and we created others. Members of the branch individual members took on an idea, researched it, came up with a script for that costume and an idea for the costume. And we had them in my cellar for many years until a couple years ago when I finally got rid of them.
Some of us went to thrift stores where sadly we could find all that camouflage gear.
It's quite an effort.
Yeah.
And Jan's second question is wondering if we could combine the fashion show, the Cape Cod one, the San Francisco one, and one in Fresno. Sadly, all of our costumes no longer exist. And we did have a video from one of the other times we presented it, but that video has been lost. So all we have is these photos from 2012, which is why this is the version you saw today.
I was really glad, though, that people said in the chat that it helped give them an idea of how to do it. And I hope it gives you an idea of how you could adapt it to your branch. One of the things I was struck in watching it again is that it brought in some new people and it enabled us to invite folks to just come. You know, maybe you can't be somebody who comes to meetings all the time or does everything, but you could do this part. You know, you could model this costume, and I think then they take it in and it becomes their connection with WILPF. So that's another thought. Any questions or comments, anything else? Let's see, is there something else in the chat?
Yes, someone wants to know if there's catalog numbers so they can order items for their cruise wear trousseau. Yeah, that would be great. We don't have the costumes anymore, sadly.
Somebody just wrote that she was at the first San Francisco one with so many ideas from Gwen Kirk and others. And this excellent fashion show brought back great memories and was really well done. Many thanks. I think that came from Barbara Nielsen. Thank you.
Yeah. And Mary Beth asked how we promoted it so people weren't expecting a regular fashion show. I think they know well enough that WILPF is not normal in that way. We did the publicity saying that it would be a political fashion show and just another way to look at these problems. And I have to say, one of the things that's kind of distressing is that the script is still so pertinent. The numbers, numbers of dead and numbers of hungry children and all are different now, but the issues are, every single one is still the same. Yeah.
The other thing you could see in some of the photos that there was an audience there. And so the fashion show was actually part of a bigger event we did about, Seeds of Change. And it was at the community college. And then we broke into workshops based on each of the costumes represented an issue. And so it was in a larger context that we did the fashion show. Chuck thinks we should take it on the road.
Did we do it as a fundraiser? It was not a fundraiser. We were looking, well, maybe it was a fundraiser. It's Donna Peel on this call. Where's our treasurer? Donna, did we make money on this? Yes, we can't remember. It was a long time ago. We probably did. Mostly when we do these events, though, the money comes from advertising in the program rather than from, money at the door. We raised the money there was a fee to come, a sliding scale. I think it was $5 to $5,000. And it covered lunch. and our rental at the college.
Mary Hanson Harrison wrote that she saw the show and commented afterwards that the checkbooks also came out in good fashion. So I think one of the times we did it, that was the case. Yeah, thank you, Mary. Yeah. It's, you know, it's funny because you'll kind of say, oh yeah, you could redo these, and they could be done. And but certainly Elenita and Donna really, really put a lot into it. I don't, you know. But other people have talents and would like to do something. Donna, you want to unmute yourself and say something? Do we have to unmute you? Can you unmute yourself?
She
Donna?
can unmute herself, yes.
She
I
Go
just
ahead,
wanted,
Donna.
Now she can.
I just wanted to say it was so much fun doing it, getting together, planning it all. And we did it twice, and we did raise money, and we did get WILF's name out into the community. It's just was, and it's heartbreaking that we're showing it today with what's happening in Afghanistan today. I could just cry. I love you all. Bye.
Thank you, Donna.
And Virginia Harris mentioned our other water goddess which was our water bottle goddess. And the water bottle goddess did go in many parades on Cape Cod, but she wasn't part of this fashion show. That was a different fashion.
Yes. Ellen Schwartz wanted to know, why didn't we keep the costume? Taking up all of someone's garage or spare room.
I had them in my cellar for eons. I could tell you,
Yes.
bins and bins. And I offered them, dear WILF sisters, to the entire National WILF through the e-news, because I couldn't keep them anymore and I hated to throw them out. But it's several bins of stuff, and I didn't have room anymore.
And also, we live on Cape Cod, where if you keep something fabric for several years, it's going to start going moldy on you.
Right.
I still have parts of things.
Yeah, we can. Someone asked, is the script available? Yeah, we do have the script, and you could use it or adapt it and make new costumes to go with it. We don't have a video. And
but we do have the PowerPoint. I mean,
we have, yeah, the PowerPoint. Was happy to share the PowerPoint with anybody. And the water bottle goddess was a walking pile of water bottles. That's just water bottles, no visible person underneath. And then we handed out flyers to people along the parade route.
Task force dropped across the board.
Oh, there's a sound coming through.
We had an inaugural ball. Candace, you want to talk about our inaugural ball?
We had several inaugural balls, but we had the Supremes came to one of our inaugural balls and sang. We all dressed up like the Supreme Court justices and sang at the ball. Depending on who was being inaugurated, we have varying degrees of happiness. So sometimes they were more protest events, and sometimes they were more hopeful. And we even had one for Biden. We had it out in the freezing cold, and in honor of our beloved Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I dressed as her. And we had a lot of horn honks and hellos, and a few of us, it was very, very cold, but we did it.
We were out there in our ball gowns and our elbow length white gloves by gum, holding signs up for Kamala, a lot of signs for Kamala.
Yes, yes, yeah. Janet Slagter says in Fresno, we called it the Runway Peace Project. That sounds great.
That's terrific.
That's great. Should we switch over to Janet now to let her finish, because she was going to wrap up, I believe.
You can take a couple more minutes if there are still questions.
Okay.
There's a comment about the I Miss Democracy in Detroit. And I think Mary Zepernick may have borrowed that idea from you, and she marched in several parades walking up to people saying, I miss democracy, don't you? And that was very fun for her.
Oh, good question. Was this supported by a WILF Many grant?
I don't remember precisely, but I wouldn't be surprised. No, Donna saying no, it wasn't. Okay, not this one.
Okay.
Some other projects.
One thing, I don't know if this one was either, but someone mentioned it was great street theater. We also several years ago did a peace and justice theater, and we got grants from all the towns. Cape Cod has 15 towns. This is the map of Cape Cod. Okay, we saw Judy carrying that, and we got grants from a number of towns. And we either rehearsed in their town or we presented a play in their town. Somehow we used their town. And some of the plays are just extraordinary. And that,
10-minute plays.
yes,
a festival
of short plays. And they all had to do with peace and justice. I still remember some of them.
Candace did a huge job sorting the scripts that were submitted and casting them and getting directors. And it was amazing. Huge amount of work.
I'm a little better at theater. Elenita's better at costuming. We bring what we have, right? Yeah. And Chris just keeps it all going, and Donna, and I don't know if Alicia's still on the call. She's a beloved member. We're very fortunate.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate that you're able to bring on a news week that seems to be nothing but bad news. You're bringing us a bit of good news, or at least a bit of something different. So thank you very much. And I think at this point we will turn this over to Janet. And thank you to the Cape Cod Branch, Elenita, Candace, and Chris. It was great to hear from you all.
So I didn't really plan to say anything more, except a couple of things about the Code Pink webinar today that were interesting. I'm not sure if Zahar is an historian or what, but he's an Afghan man with a PhD who's very much in touch with what's going on. He teaches in the US with what's going on in Afghanistan. And he pointed out a couple of things that we should keep in mind. One, I thought was interesting, is that the streets are safer now.
Jan, we lost your audio.
Okay,
oh, there you go.
So I don't know where you lost it. But at any rate, the I think historian on the Code Pink webinar this afternoon was saying the streets are really safe in Kabul right now. So everybody is going out. Shops are being open until really late, and they haven't done that in years. People are very concerned about what might happen next. And there's a lot of worry about civil war. And he characterized it as a North-South civil war. But also, how striking it was that not a shot was fired in the taking of Kabul. So,
Janet, we're picking up background sound from your news or something.
Es mi esposa, momentito.
She'll be right back, folks.
Okay. My husband is having a conversation with his sisters in Guatemala, so that's
and if you could just give people who may not have been here at the start of the presentation a quick recap of what you had said at the beginning. A summary.
Yeah, okay. I closed that. All right, let me see if I can find it. So all right.
I'll explain again.
Just a couple of things. We do have a WILPF member of our international board, the regional representative from South Asia, Jamila Afghani, is in trouble in Kabul. She had been living in exile in Turkey, but at some point she returned. I didn't know she had returned. And now she's caught at the airport trying to get out. So there's a lot of effort to, Madeline Reese, for example, has been, calling in her close contacts to see if she can get Jamila on a flight out. And that news is like now about 9 hours old. I don't know what's happened since this morning. The Code Pink webinar, I know Darian attended. I'm not sure if anybody else did. Phyllis Bennis, if you're familiar with her, spoke. And she made 5 recommendations about things we could do. And I thought they were all really important and sensible. And these are, kinds of lobbying we have to do to end the US bombing and drone raids and the CIA death squad activities permanently. To support international efforts to create a corridor and guarantees of safe passage for Afghan and international humanitarian workers. To fund a massive COVID assistance program. There were already lots of refugees who were escaping areas where the Taliban had already encroached in Afghanistan, who are concentrated in Kabul. And 150,000 is one estimate I read. And these are people who are crowded together. So this is going to be, a super spreader kind of a thing. And we have to change US requirements for visas. We have very punitive requirements. And we have to expand the categories under which people can seek asylum. So that's 4 things. And the 5th thing, of course, given our responsibility and our legacies, we have to take responsibility for what we've done. And we've got to figure out how to, what can we do to try to salvage people's lives and improve the situation. Code Pink is circulating a petition which contains 4 of the 5 things Phyllis Bennis recommended. Just go to codepink.org/Afghanistan 2021. I posted earlier in the chat, I posted the links. Okay. And both WILPF, International WILPF, and Code Pink are raising funds for women refugees. And the taking of Kabul is so recent that they haven't switched gears. So WILPF was raising money to rent spaces for women refugees in Kabul. Well, that's got to be kaput at this point. And Code Pink is raising money to get people out. And they estimated it'll cost something like $1,500 to $3,000 to get each person out. So I posted those links. Another thing that is interesting about the takeover is that the Taliban apparently posted a 12-point manifesto. And some of the things they said were, all men and women who work in government agencies, you should continue going to your job. You will face no penalties. You will be safe in your person and your honor will be safe. So, this raises all kinds of questions. Has the Taliban changed? Is this only temporary? What's going on here? I don't know. Maybe I can answer some questions. I'm not sure.
If you have a question, please put it in the chat, starting with a Q in all caps to make it easier to see.
Yeah. Wow.
Do you know if the webinar was recorded?
I suspect it was, but I haven't seen an announcement of that yet.
Candace, I wonder if some of these resources that are in the chat could be posted on WILPF's website.
What do you think? What do you think,
I
Gary?
believe we're going to work on getting an e-alert out within the next 48 hours. And then we will have either in the e-alert itself or with a reference to where to find information on the website. Things are changing so quickly that I'm hoping we can get some clarification on what the current international WILPF position is, and I'm sure Janet will provide more information. So there are some more questions, including Cheryl would like to give us some information. Is that okay with you, Janet?
Sure, I'm just going to, I thought I would post that list of links.
I
again.
did.
Oh,
I
okay,
did.
great. Fine, thanks.
There is a question, is International WILPF developing a position, proposals, et cetera? Do you have
Yes,
any information?
That's in the works. That's it, and that's, again, as much info as I have right now.
Okay, so Cheryl, you may unmute yourself.
Yes, I have. Thank you. I did attend the webinar mostly, the first hour and a bit. Took notes as I do on everything I attend. And I found this a very disturbing statement. So Matthew Ho, H-O-H, was one of the speakers. He used to work for the State Department. He was an expert, is an expert in that part of the world. And he said that our military are doing things contrary to what our president is ordering. So our president apparently has said the military shall make no more bombing and no more drone strikes. And our military is actually disobeying him. And so he said this, I wrote it down. I don't know if anybody else heard him say that. I believe he was talking about our military and our president, okay? Our president, you know, thinks he's telling the military to do things, and they're actually disobeying him. And normally you would be court-martialed for such disobeying. So that I thought was very interesting. He also said the warlords, okay, so most of the country is a tribal culture and is governed by warlords who have been allied to the CIA. And the reason that the Taliban was able to just walk into Kabul was the Afghan soldiers had no faith in their own government anymore. They didn't want to, you know, fight, because they would be fighting for something they no longer believed in. As you heard, the president has already left and gone to some nearby country. So a very complicated situation. And so the CIA, he says, you know, the US is engaged in many covert, secret activities, you know, all over the world. And the Afghani gentleman said, you know, you can't fight terrorists with a war. That just doesn't work. You can't get rid of terrorists through a war, which is what we've been trying to do for the last 20 years. And it obviously, okay, so that's just a few things that I heard and during this webinar. And Phyllis Bennis, as you know, we've had her speak at a Disarm webinar, and she knows a great deal. She's always very sensible. Thank you.
I'd like to just add that on KPFA radio, there was an interview with Basevich. Is it Andrew Basevich? I forget his first name. And he was noting that starting during the Trump, well, perhaps even before, but starting during that presidency, the military stopped following the orders of the commander-in-chief. And during the time of Trump, some of us might have felt comforted by that. But now, for example, where Biden had said no more drone strikes, and I think, Cheryl, you're right that this came up in the Code Pink program, drone strikes happened anyway without the president's, quote, permission, and there were no consequences for the military folks in the chain of command who were involved with those drone strikes. So this is a serious breach of the traditional discipline of the military and suggests that something needs to be paid attention to. I do want to call on Isvara, who had her hand up, and you need to unmute yourself to go ahead and ask your question or make your statement.
Okay. What I understood that Medea Benjamin said is that they had about 600 people in the Zoom and 200 people on YouTube, and they always post their things in YouTube. So it's probably going to be there. It's worth listening to the whole thing. I think that the disobedience of the president was more on under Trump, but that's what I remember. You know, I wasn't taking notes. I was just listening. So I wanted to give that tip that probably that program is on YouTube. Thank you.
And there's a question.
This is
go ahead.
Ellen Thomas. I wanted to say that I posted in the chat the link to the webinar that has been live streamed to the Code Pink Facebook page.
And in terms of Mary Beth's question about possibly supporting Biden, I highly recommend actually listening to that Code Pink webinar because they thoroughly address the whole situation, and it's not a quick and easy answer. So it is nearly 6:30. If anyone has a pressing question, please put it in the chat. And beyond that, I hope everyone will join us tomorrow. We'll have another of our how-to programs. And for tomorrow, the program will be one that many of you will want to be involved with because it's so pertinent. Military services and enlisting, what youth need to know before enlisting. So that's at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And we hope that many of you can join us then. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, everyone who participated today, and see you tomorrow.